that was not the question. Is there a person, a living individual on the boat?
Yes, there's lots of people breathing on the boat.
A new audio recording from the Nolan Wells case captures the chaos on the water the day the 18-year-old disappeared off Mississippi's Horn Island. And now we're hearing the frantic distress call. The United Cajun Navy is also firing back at attorney Ben Crump over a major claim. And also there's this decision by prosecutors to keep a key piece of evidence under wraps for now that is telling a lot about where this investigation may go. I'm going to break down every new development in this story. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Okay, we're back with a lot more that has happened since we last updated you on the case of Nolan Wells. I think the last time we updated you was when the results of that independent autopsy were released, which, by the way, came out. They couldn't rule out foul play, so it leaves Nolan's family still demanding answers. There's still, of course, the state medical examination and the toxicology reports and what will come of that. But now what do we have? We have new audio that has been released by the Mississippi Department of Marine Resources, and it is giving us a glimpse into some of the chaos that was occurring on the water on that fateful July 4th day. One of the first pieces of audio that we're hearing from that day captures what appears to be the frantic moments as a boat that Nolan had potentially been on that day that was connected to this group began taking on water. And we've got the full call. We're going to unpack it for you. But first, just listen to this.
Hey, we're at the west tip of Horn, and our bilge pump stopped working. We're sinking. Can you all please come?
Yes. How far is the water coming up, sir?
It's coming up. We're just sinking. I don't know. Like we're going down now.
So that's what I've been talking about. That is the sound of what appears to be panic as the boat was taking on water. But there is one thing that we're trying to figure out. Where was Nolan Wells? Where was Nolan Wells when that was happening? Was he on the boat? Was he already off the island? We don't know. It's one of the many gaps that we're still trying to piece together in the timeline. And what we're hearing is just one piece of this overarching puzzle. Nolan's friends are talking now. We're going to tell you what they said in these interviews. The United Cajun Navy, that was part of the search efforts for Nolan, they are firing back at attorney Ben Crump, who's representing Nolan Wells' family right now. They are disputing a key detail and making a shocking claim about what they've actually discussed, or rather, what they haven't discussed. The DA, the district attorney, is planning a move that's going to change when we'll get a look at the results of the state's autopsy. So a lot is happening. I want to get into it all. But first, let me just make sure everybody's on the same page with this if you haven't been following the case from the beginning. So we're talking about 18-year-old Nolan Wells. He was from Ocean Spring, Mississippi. He was a college student, football player. On the 4th of July, he went with a group of friends to Horn Island. It's a barrier island off the Mississippi coast. It's really isolated. There's no like commercial developments or anything like that. Going there to celebrate. At some point, he disappeared. He was reported missing that night. A massive search was launched. And then 2 days later, on July 6th, his body was found on the island. But what happened to him? That remains the central question. That remains a question that nobody, at least publicly, can seem to answer or has answered. The results of the family's independent autopsy listed Nolan's cause and manner of death as undetermined. And remember, the family seemingly being distrustful of law enforcement or suspicious or maybe critical that the first impressions of what happened to Nolan were there were no signs of foul play, this seemed to be accidental drowning. They seemed to want more answers or a second opinion, so they hired Ben Crump. They ordered an independent autopsy. And this pathologist found that pieces of Nolan's body, we're talking portions of his neck, throat, had been removed by the state medical examiner because the state medical examiner did the first autopsy. Again, we don't have the results. So it'd been removed by the state medical examiner before this second autopsy could be done. So this second pathologist couldn't determine whether there was in fact injury or trauma to the neck. And that leaves many questions still on the table. It raises a question if the state ME is doing further testing of those components. Can the state ME definitively conclude there was trauma, that this was drowning accidental or not? Maybe it's tough to say if it's accidental or not, given those watery conditions. And then there's that red discoloration in the back of the head, which we talked about last time. According to medical experts I spoke to, it could be from decomposition. It could be a blunt injury before death, because when I spoke with Dr. Nada Rutherford, she said that the body doesn't bruise like that after death. But let's start unpacking now what we're now learning, what's new. So the Mississippi Department of Resources released a recording of a distress call made on July 4th from a boat near Horn Island, which we believe Nolan was on at some point during that day. We don't know for sure who made this call, but it does offer us a look into what was unfolding out there on the water that day, including the boat sinking, the kids panicking, and again, where is Nolan? Now, before I play this audio, just something to keep in mind. I first saw this from TMZ, Charles Laboutier, basically said that there's a conversation happening online that in this audio, in the background, you can possibly, arguably hear, is he dead? Nolan, oh my God. Very difficult to make out. I leave it to you. Let me just play this. I don't know if it's going to be part of a conversation, but here you go.
Detail assistance, Vicky speaking. How can I help you? And is everybody on board in good health otherwise?
Yeah, everybody's
How
on
many?
board.
All right. Do you need the United States Coast Guard?
What?
Do you need the United States Coast Guard?
No, we do not need that.
All right. All right. Do you have your current GPS coordinates?
Let me go look. 46.72. Okay, my coordinates are 30 degrees by 14.684 north, and then west by 88 degrees by 46.79.
All right. How many adults and children on board?
No, there's no children.
So is there anybody on board? How many adults, sir? That was the question.
Try to jump in and pull the plug while you're going.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Yep, I just need you to answer these questions so I can get you over to the captain.
Okay.
How many
what's
adults
going
on board?
So, there are 0 adults on board.
There's nobody on board the boat?
No. Nobody
right.
here is over the age of 21.
Sir, that was not the question. Is there a person? Is there a person, a living individual on the boat?
Yes, there's lots of people breathing on the boat.
All right, how many people, sir?
Like 7.
The dispatcher then transfers the call to a captain.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I just actually got off the phone with his grandpa, who I'm guessing is the owner of the boat. And he said,
Okay.
I just hung up with him. He said that they don't need any help right now, but if something changes, he'll call me back. So
All right.
I'm guessing that they may have figured it out, because that's what he said. So they're in a panic and their boat won't crank.
Now, as I said before, we don't exactly know where Nolan was at this point. But according to reporting from WLOX, this distress call was made around 4 p.m. And according to the Jackson County Sheriff's Office and other accounts that we've heard, Nolan was apparently last seen around 3 p.m. So it places this call at just about an hour after someone would have last had eyes on him. But I want to talk about what happened since that press conference, because if you watched our previous episode, you might remember that we talked about this moment, this big detail that attorney Ben Crump shared about how Nolan was found.
The United Cajun Navy are so forthcoming. The fact that they told us, we haven't heard from any of their local officials, that Nolan was found face down, fully clothed. Well, that's significant to us because the last time we saw him on the videos, he was without a shirt. So at what point did he put on a shirt? Somebody saw something. Somebody knows something. There were almost 300, 400 people. Somebody knows something.
Major moment, because if it's connected to it, if you remember that piece of video that surfaced just days before the press conference, right? This video, which TMZ obtained and published, was recorded on July 4th at 2:23 p.m., so a little under 40 minutes before Nolan was last seen, appears to show an individual, a man. There's an argument that that could be Nolan wearing blue swim trunks and shirtless. And we remember there was a photo of Nolan Wells that had been circulated from that day wearing those trunks with his friends. So Crump was raising the question of whether anyone saw anything in between when he was without a shirt, like here, if this is him, and allegedly when he claims he was later fully clothed. Here's the problem. The problem is that the United Cajun Navy says they never told Crump he was fully clothed, and they are firing back at his initial claim. They're now coming for him. On July 26th, they wrote on X, did Attorney Crump lie about UCN? Yes. He said UCN told us Nolan was fully clothed. Not true. We have never spoken with Crump, And we certainly didn't tell the parents anything like that. Now, here's where it gets a little confusing because this fully clothed claim doesn't actually originate with Ben Crump. No, the president of the United Cajun Navy, Todd Terrell, was on a July 20th episode of Crime Stories with Nancy Grace and said yes to a question about Nolan being fully clothed. But Terrell seemingly later corrected himself, saying Nolan was clothed, meaning he wasn't naked. He was wearing swim trunks, and that, yes, he should have been clearer. So the Cajun Navy mentioned that in this X post, writing, quote, did the UCN president get taken out of context during an interview? Yes. His definition of fully clothed meant not being naked, wearing swim trunks. It doesn't matter what anybody else thought it meant. It only matters what Todd meant because he said it. The bottom line is that Nolan was wearing only swim trunks when found. That's a fact that can't be refuted. This is a manufactured distraction to divert attention from this press conference blunder. So that's the dispute with the United Cajun Navy. But now I want to talk about the key figures in this case who are now speaking out. Nolan's purported friends. They sat down for lengthy interviews with conservative commentator Brandon Tatum on the Officer Tatum Show. What they're saying is adding even more layers to all of this. So, for example, first up, Tracestin Shepard, described as one of Nolan's best friends. However, there's been some commentary that Nolan's family has maybe publicly disputed this. But here's what he spoke about with Officer Tatum. So he spoke about the moment that he learned that Nolan's body had been found, saying, quote, I was putting fuel in our boat at 6. I got told that they were taking out another boat to Chandelier at 7. So I put my boat back on the lift and I went to McDonald's. And then I got the news after I left McDonald's that his body was found. He says he had nothing to do with Nolan's death and that he has been living with guilt ever since, saying, quote, I beat myself up every night I lay down. Beat myself up anytime it crosses my mind because in my head, if I wasn't drinking, if I didn't get into that altercation, apparently there was an altercation that day, not involving Nolan, but involving him, maybe I would be able to do something. Maybe I would have told Nolan, hey man, you're not going with that girl, just come back with us. Maybe it just plays out different. So yes, he's talking about this altercation that he says happened on the island, this apparent fight with a stranger that got so intense that he claims his uncle made him get back on the boat and leave. And regarding the girl comment, that's interesting because this is what he says was the last thing he told Nolan that day. Quote, all right, buddy, I love you. See you later. I'm glad I said it. I had been under the influence a little bit, and that's probably why I did say it at the time. Just, getting all lovey-dovey. But I'm at peace. I said it. Another friend, Warren Hudson, also spoke out, was interviewed, talked about the phone, the keys, the night everything unraveled. According to Hudson, they were in an emergency situation. They needed to leave quickly, which is why they wanted to get Nolan on board. And he said, quote, Nolan, get the F on the boat. Get on the boat. And Nolan said, no, I'm staying out here. Now, this whole back and forth about whether Nolan stayed on the island to talk to a girl, Nolan's family has indicated from the very beginning it would be very unlike him to leave his friends. And this is of note too. According to People, Nolan's mom, Christine Wonsley, said in a prior interview with the Griot, this is weeks back, that this young lady that Nolan was apparently talking to contacted her. She said in the interview, quote, she did reach out to me initially just saying basically like it was a hey and bye type situation. So it's not entirely clear, did he follow this girl? How long were they together? How long were they talking? And look, one of the biggest outliers in all of this, why people have a lot of questions is no matter what happened to Nolan, no one saw anything. No one saw him drowning, if that's the case. Now, look, we don't know exactly what's being told to law enforcement, what's being told to Ben Crump and his team, but that's a big question. So here's where the phone comes in, okay? So Nolan's family has raised concerns about content being deleted. And remember, the phone was left behind on the boat, apparently. The family has indicated they used a Life 360 app to locate Nolan's phone, and then they got custody of it from his friends. But they also said that they found it strange that he would leave the phone behind if he was planning to stay on the island. But Hudson said this, quote, there was no reason for us to get on Nolan's phone. No one touched Nolan's phone. No one even was in contact with his phone until it was moved from the boat to the truck. And none of us have access to Nolan's password to get on his phone and delete anything. We had no reason to delete anything. There's nothing to hide here. And there's been a conversation about maybe he wouldn't take his phone because you're entering at the salt water. Maybe that's common when you're boating. Now, Hudson also clarified the timeline because the last time he claims he saw Nolan was around 3 p.m. on July 4th. And he claims he saw Nolan in the water with a girl. Said, quote, I looked at Nolan and Nolan was like shaking his head, laughing. And I was like, dude, you crazy. Now, both Shepard and Hudson denied having anything to do with Nolan's death, okay? But now I want to talk about another update, major update, that's impacting the investigation itself. Just last week, the DA, the district attorney, Angel Myers McElrath, made an announcement confirming the state's official autopsy report. It's being weighed. It won't be released to the public until a grand jury reviews it. That's significant. Grand jury being impaneled to determine if criminal charges are warranted. And the DA made this clear when speaking with WLOX, saying, quote, every death in the county, except those of natural causes and non-criminal car wrecks, is presented to your grand jury. Many people don't know that we have handled death investigations in this manner my entire career. She also said her office is handling the investigation the same way as all others, telling WLOX the pressure for answers does not change what the work requires. Our responsibility to Nolan and our community is to complete this investigation thoroughly and carefully, without compromise, supported by the evidence and worthy of the confidence of the people we serve. Our restraint in communicating facts and evidence is not an effort to keep the truth from the public. It is an effort to protect the integrity of this investigation and the grand jury proceeding. And that would make sense, because if you have information out there, will it affect other witnesses' accounts, witness testimony? Could they change the narrative at all? Could it affect potential grand jurors being impaneled? You want to keep everything as buttoned up as possible while this is an ongoing investigation. Now, she also addressed the flood of misinformation that has been swirling online, saying, quote, if we sacrifice the integrity of the process in an effort to satisfy today's questions, we risk undermining confidence in tomorrow's answers. Here's the thing. DA says this is standard procedure. Nolan's family has been frustrated by the lack of transparency from the very beginning. They've called on local officials to be more forthcoming. They've made it clear they don't trust the investigation is being handled maybe properly. And as for when that grand jury will convene, the DA hasn't said. So for now, we're waiting to see what happens next. We've been on top of this from the very beginning. We will continue to stay on top of it to see that this family gets the answers that they need. That's all we have for you right now here on Sidebar. Everybody, thank you so much for joining us. As always, please subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you should get your podcasts. You can also check us out on NBC's Peacock as well. If you want to follow me, X, Instagram, my News Nation show, Jesse Weber Live, Monday through Friday, 11 p.m. Eastern. See you next time, everybody.